Welcome to Awesome Chapter, the show where we explore the world's most inspiring and influential books. The ones that really get under your skin and challenge how you think and act.
And today we are really getting into the mechanics of change. We're moving away from this idea of just, finding motivation and instead looking at building sustainable, repeatable systems.
We are cracking open James Clear's hugely influential book, Atomic Habits.
Such a great title.
I love that title, Atomic Habits, yeah. It just immediately tells you what it's all about, the scale we're working at. When he says atomic, he's not talking about some huge explosive action.
No, not at all. He's talking about the core definition. An extremely small unit, the single, irreducible piece of a much larger system.
So our mission today is to really unpack Clear's framework. It feels a little counterintuitive at first.
It really does. It's this step-by-step guide for building these massive, life-altering results, but not through some, heroic feat of willpower.
Yeah, I know, overnight success stories here.
None.
Yeah.
It's all about a long, consistent series of these tiny 1% improvements that, and this is the absolute key, that compound over time.
And what makes this so powerful, I think, is that it's not just theory he cooked up in a lab. This whole system was born out of a personal crisis. The author himself had to use these principles to literally rebuild his life after this devastating near-fatal injury.
That trauma is, it's the foundation of the entire book. The system he lays out, it's the exact roadmap he used himself.
To go from what, a hospital patient?
From being in the hospital, struggling with the most basic motor skills, to becoming an academic All-American athlete in college. It's the ultimate proof that starting small, even when you are at your absolute lowest point, is the most powerful way forward.
Okay, let's unpack this. I really want to see how those tiny components, those atomic habits, actually combine to create something enormous.
Yeah.
So let's start with the math, the cold, hard math of compounding, because I think this is where anyone who's a little skeptical really needs to pay attention.
Yeah.
We all kind of get linear growth, right? You improve 1% every day for 100 days, you're 100% better. Simple. But when you apply compounding, like with interest, to self-improvement, what does getting 1% better every day for a whole year actually get you?
It looks like magic, but it's just the logic of exponential growth. If you improve by just 1% each day for 365 days, you don't end up, 3.65 times better.
Which would be the linear result.
Exactly. Instead, you end up 37.78 times better by the end of that year.
37 times.
Yeah.
That number feels totally unbelievable when you're just stuck in the day-to-day grind of it. But it completely underscores this idea that these tiny choices, the ones that feel totally insignificant in the moment, they become the defining factors over the long term.
It proves that the direction you're headed in is so much more important than your speed right now. Clear calls habits a double-edged sword for exactly this reason.
Because they can work for you or against you.
Right. They decide whether time becomes your ally or your worst enemy. If you're consistently compounding negative choices, like building up stress day after day, or accumulating debt, or just repeating negative thoughts,
Time will cut you down.
it will cut you down just as efficiently and powerfully as positive choices will build you up.
And you can see this so clearly with knowledge. It's a perfect example of compounding. The time you spend reading something, it's not just adding one more fact to your brain.
No, it's fundamentally changing the structure of your mind. Learning one new idea won't make you a genius overnight. Of course not. But a daily commitment to learning is transformative because knowledge connects to other knowledge.
It creates a network.
Exactly. Every new book or idea doesn't just teach you something new. It opens up new ways of thinking about the old ideas you already have. It's like it multiplies the value of your existing mental inventory.
It's why people say the real value of education isn't knowing facts, but knowing how to connect them.
That's it. And you see it in productivity, too. You automate one little task. Seems like a 5-minute win on a Tuesday.
Yeah, no big deal.
But over a whole career, that consistent freeing up of mental energy is just staggering. The more you can handle without conscious thought, the more your brain is free to tackle the real problems, the creative stuff.
And this isn't just about work or learning, it's social too.
Oh, absolutely. Relationships compound, often in these really subtle ways, being just slightly more present in a conversation or a bit more supportive.
It seems minor.
It does, but people reflect your behavior back to you. Over time, you build this incredibly broad and strong network of connections. And on the flip side, if you get into the habit of seeing people as, selfish or out to get you, you start seeing those people everywhere. You compound a negative worldview.
So to make this less abstract, Clear uses this phenomenal real-world example, the British cycling team revolution.
Oh, this story is the perfect case study. It's what he calls the aggregation of marginal gains.
And before 2003, British cycling was, what's the word, a joke.
A total joke, yeah. They were defined by almost a century of just complete disappointment. Since the modern Olympics began, they'd won one single gold medal. One.
And in the Tour de France, the biggest race in the world.
Zero. Not a single British cyclist had ever won it in over 100 years. They were just mediocre.
It got so bad that bike manufacturers wouldn't even sell them equipment.
Right. They were worried the association with the team would actually hurt their brand. That's how low the baseline was. And then they hired a new performance director, Dave Brailsford.
And he had this completely different philosophy.
It was so simple on the surface. He believed that if you broke down everything that goes into riding a bike and just improved every single piece by 1%, the total aggregated result would be overwhelming.
So he saw the whole thing, from training to sleep,
Yeah.
as this system you could just micro-optimize.
And he went way beyond the obvious stuff. Of course, they started with the bike. They redesigned the seats for more comfort, tested fabrics in a wind tunnel for aerodynamics. They even had these electrically heated overshorts to keep the rider's muscle temperature just right.
Standard performance stuff.
Ah.
But the really fascinating part, and where the book just shines, is when they started looking for gains in things that seemed totally unrelated to cycling.
That's where the marginal gains were hiding. They tested different massage gels to see which one led to the fastest muscle recovery.
Okay, that's already getting pretty detailed.
They were obsessed with avoiding illness, so they hired a surgeon to come in and teach every single rider the proper, optimal way to wash their hands to reduce the chance of catching a cold.
A surgeon. To teach hand washing, that is next level commitment to the 1% rule.
And they didn't stop there. They figured out the ideal pillow and mattress combo for each rider to optimize their sleep. They would even bring their custom mattresses with them on the road.
And then there's the most famous one, the team truck.
Yes. The slightly bizarre micro-improvement. They painted the inside of the team truck white.
Wait, the truck. You're talking about aerodynamics and muscle temperature, and now you're painting the inside of a support vehicle.
It sounds totally excessive, I know, but the logic was perfect. By painting the interior white, they could spot tiny bits of dust and dirt that would normally go unnoticed.
And that dust could get into the finely tuned bike mechanics.
Exactly. It could degrade performance. So by managing dust, by reducing friction in every single part of the system, they built this incredible structural advantage.
And the results, I mean, they just speak for themselves. This wasn't a slow improvement.
It was complete domination. Within 5 years at the 2008 Beijing Olympics, British cycling won 60% of the available gold medals.
60%.
In the next decade, they won 5 Tour de France titles in 6 years, 178 world championships. It was a total validation of Brailsford's philosophy. A system of many small changes is just way more powerful than hunting for one big breakthrough.
Okay, but this brings us to what might be the biggest psychological hurdle in this whole framework. What Clear calls the plateau of latent potential. Because if I'm spending my time painting my truck white and practicing my hand washing, I'm going to want to see some results now.
And that's the trap. We expect progress to be linear. You put in the effort, you get a proportional reward back. But real improvement, especially in the early days of a new habit, it's often invisible.
You put in all this effort and you see nothing. It's so frustrating.
The ice cube analogy he uses is perfect for this.
Yeah, explain that one.
Imagine an ice cube in a room. The temperature is slowly rising from, say, 25 degrees Celsius up to 31 degrees. For all that time, nothing visible is happening.
You think your effort is completely wasted. The ice is still solid.
Exactly. But then the temperature hits 32 degrees and the ice starts to melt. That 1 degree shift between 31 and 32 seems no different than any of the earlier shifts, but it unlocked this huge visible change.
So this system was working the whole time. The results were just being stored up, kind of underground.
Right. The potential was building. That final degree didn't cause the melting on its own. It was all the degrees that came before it. A breakthrough moment is often just the last hit that was needed after hundreds of previous actions built up that critical mass for change.
And you see this pattern everywhere.
Everywhere. In nature, in business. Think about bamboo. For the first 5 years, you barely see anything above the ground. It's building this massive root system. Then, suddenly, in 6 weeks, it shoots 90 feet into the air.
Or starting a business. The first few years are just a slow, invisible grind, and then suddenly you hit that tipping point and it just accelerates.
It's the stonecutter principle, that old quote from Jacob Riis.
Right. The stonecutter hammers away at his rock 100 times without a single crack.
Yet at the 101st blow, it will split in two, and I know it was not that last blow that did it, but all that had gone before.
So mastery just requires patience. You have to accept that the immediate result almost never matches the effort you're putting in.
Which brings us to the question of motivation. How do you stay going during that plateau? And that's where Clear's own story comes in.
This whole idea of small changes leading to huge wins is, it's literally James Clear's own life story. We mentioned his injury, but let's get into the details because it shows exactly why he had to stop chasing big goals and focus completely on these tiny daily systems.
Yeah, his experience was just horrific. It was the last day of his sophomore year in high school. He's standing near the batting cage, and a teammate takes a full swing with an aluminum bat.
And the bat slips?
The bat slips and hits him directly in the face.
Wow. The force from that must have been just immense.
It was devastating. The bat crushed his nose into a U shape, caused multiple skull fractures, shattered both of his eye sockets.
Oh my God.
And the internal force, it sent the soft tissue of his brain slamming into the inside of his skull. He had immediate massive swelling.
And the first moments after were terrifying, right? He was completely disoriented.
Totally. The nurse asked him these basic questions, like, what year is it? And he was 4 years off. He named the wrong president. And the most chilling part, it took him a full 10 seconds to remember his own mother's name.
Jeez.
He ended up in a medically induced coma just to manage the brain swelling.
And when he finally woke up, the recovery was just a marathon.
A total marathon. He had double vision for weeks. He was having seizures. It was 8 months before he could even drive a car again. At physical therapy, he was practicing the most basic things, like just walking in a straight line. He felt completely lost.
And his whole identity was wrapped up in being an athlete.
That was the thing. Baseball was his passion. His dream was to play professionally. So when he finally got back to the team a year later, he tried out for varsity.
And he got cut.
He was the only junior cut from the squad. He got sent down to junior varsity, and he talks about just sitting in his car and crying, feeling totally humiliated. Like all that effort to come back was for nothing.
But then, just a few years later, by the time he graduates college, the whole story has flipped.
It's completely reversed. He was named the top male athlete at his university and was on the ESPN Academic All-America team. And he didn't get there through one big comeback moment.
No, it was through a long series of these small, positive actions he started in college.
Simple things. Doing his laundry once a week, keeping his dorm room clean, getting to the gym just a little more often than the average person. These tiny wins compounded and became the entire foundation for his work on habits.
And that leads us straight into his core philosophy, which is moving from focusing on the outcome to focusing on identity.
This is identity-based habits, and it's the absolute ultimate form of intrinsic motivation. Most of us, we focus on the outcome, the goal. I want to lose weight or I want to run a marathon.
Right. What we want to achieve.
But Clear argues you have to focus on who you want to become. Because unless you change that underlying belief system about yourself, the outcome is never going to stick.
You have to actually become the kind of person who just does that thing naturally.
Exactly. Your self-image is the engine. And he uses this really powerful analogy, the voting analogy.
Every action you take is a vote.
It's a vote for the type of person you want to become. So every time you skip dessert, that's a vote for being a healthy person. Every workout is a vote for being an athlete. And as those votes add up, the evidence starts to change, and the story you tell yourself starts to change with it.
The story of Clark, the guy who chewed his fingernails, is so good because it shows how pride is the engine of identity.
Oh, yeah. Clark had chewed his nails for decades. He'd tried to stop with willpower, but as soon as he got stressed, the habit came right back. The change only became permanent after he got his first ever professional manicure. He realized it made his nails look nice, and that little aesthetic change made him proud of them.
So his identity shifted. He went from being a guy who chews his nails when he's stressed to a guy who takes pride in caring for his nails.
Right. The habit became part of his identity, not just some chore he had to endure.
So once we get that identity as the real target, we can move into the practical framework, the 4 laws of behavior change. And the first one is make it obvious.
And this one is all about awareness. Specifically, making your non-conscious habits conscious. The more automatic a behavior is, the less you question it, even if it's bad for you.
We're just running on autopilot.
Constantly. He compares it to a military analyst who can spot an enemy plane on a radar screen even when it looks identical to a friendly plane. Their subconscious brain has spotted a pattern the conscious brain hasn't even registered yet.
So to change the pattern, we have to force ourselves to actually see it first.
And that's the whole point of the habit scorecard. It's an exercise in just radical self-awareness. You literally list out every single thing you do all day. Wake up, hit snooze, check phone, brush teeth, make coffee, everything.
And then you score them. Positive, negative, or neutral.
Right. Plus, minus, or equals.
But this can be tricky, right? Like, checking email all the time feels productive, but really it's just causing stress and distraction. So how do we score something like that accurately?
That's where the nuance is. Clear says all habits, even bad ones, serve you in some way. They solve a problem. Smoking relieves stress. Scrolling on your phone relieves boredom. But for the scorecard, you have to categorize them based on how they benefit you in the long run in relation to your desired identity.
So the real question is, does this behavior help me become the person I want to be? Is this habit casting a vote for or against my identity?
That's the one. Checking your phone first thing in the morning might feel good, but if your identity goal is to be focused and present, it's a huge negative vote. You're starting your day reacting to everyone else's agenda. But the first step is just to observe. No judgment, no need to change anything yet. Just make the unconscious conscious.
And once we can see them clearly, how do we actually start the good ones?
That's where you use implementation, intention, and habit stacking. Most of us are way too vague. I'll exercise more when, where.
So you need a concrete plan.
You formalize it. I will behavior at time and location. That eliminates all the mental friction of deciding. And then habit stacking links a new habit to one you already have. The formula is, after I current habit, I will new habit.
So after I pour my morning coffee, I will meditate for 1 minute.
Perfect. You're stacking the new habit onto a routine that's already completely automatic. The prompt becomes obvious.
Okay, so let's say we've successfully mapped our habits with the scorecard. We've figured out where to stack a new one. The problem is often, I know what I should do, but I just don't want to. The desire isn't there.
Right.
So how does Clear tackle desire? This brings us to the second law, make it attractive.
This is where we get into the neuroscience of motivation, specifically the dopamine-driven feedback loop. For years, scientists thought dopamine was just about pleasure, liking something.
But it's not.
It's not. We now know its main role is in wanting, in desire and anticipation. Dopamine gets released before you even do the action, right after your brain sees the cue. It's what creates the craving that drives you to act.
And that difference between wanting and liking is so important. It explains why addictions are so hard to break, even when the person doesn't even really enjoy the thing anymore.
Because our brains have way more neural circuitry dedicated to wanting rewards than to actually liking them. They showed this with lab mice. They give the mice a big hit of dopamine every time they poke their nose in a box.
And what happened?
The mice developed a craving so powerful they started poking the box 800 times an hour, even if there was no actual reward in the box. The anticipation, the craving, that was the driver. It's the same loop with social media notifications or slot machines.
And this craving is something that our modern world has learned to exploit with what the book calls supernormal stimuli.
Yeah, these are just exaggerated cues that trigger a much stronger response than normal. You see it in the animal kingdom, like with the gray-lag goose. It has an instinct to roll any large, round object back to its nest.
Even if it's a volleyball.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The brain just has this rule, protect large, round object. The exaggerated cue of the volleyball triggers an exaggerated instinctual response.
And humans are just as susceptible to this. Our world is full of these exaggerated versions of reality.
Oh, absolutely. Modern junk food is the ultimate supernormal stimulus. It is chemically engineered to deliver a concentrated blast of calories, fat, and flavor that our ancestral brains just can't resist.
Our brains are still wired for an environment where calories were scarce.
Right. We have these ancient brains trying to survive a famine that is never going to come, which makes these engineered foods incredibly attractive and highly, highly habit-forming.
So to make our good habits more attractive, we have to artificially boost their appeal. And one way is through temptation bundling.
This is where you combine an action you want to do with an action you need to do. So, for example, you only let yourself watch your favorite Netflix show, the want, while you're on the stationary bike. The need.
It makes the necessary habit instantly more attractive because you've linked it to this guaranteed immediate reward.
That attraction isn't just about chemicals, it's deeply social. We find habits attractive when they're just the normal thing to do in our tribe.
We imitate three groups, right?
Yeah. Right. First, the close, the people right around us. Our friends, family, partners, we just absorb their habits. There is a study that found if one person in a relationship lost weight, their partner would also slim down about a third of the time.
Even without actively trying.
Exactly. It's this invisible peer pressure that just drives us to conform.
And the power of that conformity is, frankly, a little scary when you look at those Solomon Asch experiments from the 50s.
Oh, those are classic. They show just how easily we will abandon what our own eyes are telling us just to fit in with the group.
So they'd show people a line on a card and then ask them to match it to one of three lines on another card, and the answer was super obvious.
Totally obvious. But the test subject was in a room full of actors who were all told to give the same intentionally wrong answer.
And what happened to the real subject?
They would just get completely bewildered. You could see them doubting their own senses. By the end of the experiment, nearly 75% of the subjects had agreed with the group's obviously wrong answer at least once. So when we're unsure how to act, we just look to the group. If you want to build a habit, the easiest way to make it attractive is to join a culture where that desired behavior is the normal behavior.
And the third group we imitate is the powerful. We copy people we admire, people with status.
Because we're hardwired to seek status. Historically, status meant survival, better resources, better mates. So we're highly motivated to do things that raise our status and avoid things that lower it.
It's why we clean the house like crazy before our parents or in-laws come over. We don't want to be judged.
Exactly. And you see it with the Polgar sisters, the chess prodigies. They kept up this incredibly difficult habit of practicing chess for decades because in their family, their tribe, that behavior was highly valued. It was rewarded with praise and status, like becoming a grandmaster. The habit was attractive because it led to high social standing.
So on the flip side, what about making a bad habit unattractive? Claire has this really simple but powerful idea about reframing your language.
Yes, just shifting the action from a burden to an opportunity. You change your internal monologue from I have to I get to,
So instead of I have to go to work, it's I get to go to work and run my business.
or I get to contribute value to the world. It's not just a little word trick. It fundamentally highlights the opportunity instead of the obligation.
It's like you're reprogramming your brain's predictions.
You absolutely are. When your brain hears I have to, it anticipates pain and obligation, which lowers the dopamine response. When it hears I get to, it anticipates opportunity and growth. The example he gives of the man in the wheelchair is just so powerful for illustrating this.
Someone asked him if it was difficult being confined to his wheelchair.
And he responded, I'm not confined to my wheelchair. I am liberated by it. If it wasn't for my wheelchair, I would be bedbound and never able to leave my house.
Both statements are true, technically.
But his choice of perspective completely transforms his daily reality. You can do the same thing with nervousness before a big presentation. Instead of I'm nervous, you can reframe it as I'm excited and my body is giving me adrenaline to help me focus. That's how you make a hard thing attractive.
Okay, so the third law seems almost deceptively simple. Make it easy. It's all about reducing the friction, both physical and psychological, between you and the thing you want to do.
But before we even get to friction, we have to talk about why repetition is so important.
Because that's how the habit actually gets wired into your brain.
Right, it's how those neural pathways get formed and strengthened. It's really about quantity over this idea of theoretical perfection. The perfect example is that experiment by the photographer Jerry Uelsmann.
He split his class into two groups, right? Quantity versus quality.
Exactly. The quantity group was graded purely on volume. If you turned in 100 photos, you got an A, 90 photos, a B, and so on.
And the quality group.
They were graded on the excellence of a single photo. They had the whole semester to get that one perfect shot.
And the results were not what you might expect.
Not at all. By the end of the semester, all the best photos came from the quantity group.
Why?
Well, while the quality group was sitting around theorizing about what makes a perfect photo, the quantity group was out there just taking hundreds of pictures. They were experimenting, learning from their mistakes, trying different things in the darkroom. They honed their skills through pure repetition.
That's such a powerful lesson, especially for any perfectionist listening. It's so easy to get bogged down in finding the best plan that you never actually start doing the thing.
You have to act for those neural pathways to form, and that ties directly into what he calls the law of least effort.
Which is the idea that Deep down, we're all fundamentally lazy.
Well, yeah, I mean, conventional wisdom says motivation and ambition are everything, but the deeper truth is that our real underlying motivation is to conserve energy. We just naturally gravitate toward the option that requires the least amount of work.
That feels a little insulting to a room full of ambitious people. Can you defend the idea that we're all motivated by laziness?
It's not a moral judgment, it's actually a really smart evolutionary strategy. Energy is precious. If you can get the same result with less effort, your chances of survival go up because you have more resources left over. The anthropologist Jared Diamond saw this play out on a global scale with the spread of agriculture.
How does the shape of continents have anything to do with human effort?
Diamond noticed that continents with a mostly east-west axis, like Europe and Asia, saw agriculture spread 2 to 3 times faster than continents with a north-south axis, like the Americas or Africa.
That's a huge difference.
It's massive, and it's all about friction. As you move east to west, the climate stays pretty consistent, so farmers could easily spread the crops they'd already domesticated.
But if you're moving north to south, the climate changes dramatically.
Right. The oranges you grow in Florida aren't going to survive a Canadian winter, so farmers on north-south routes had to constantly find and domesticate brand new plants, which required way more effort. Humans just took the path of least resistance.
So the goal isn't to only do easy things. It's to make the things that have a long-term payoff as easy as possible in the moment. It's about ruthlessly cutting out friction.
It's addition by subtraction. Look at Japanese lean production. They were obsessed with removing waste from their manufacturing process, even redesigning workspaces, so workers didn't waste a single motion twisting to reach for a tool.
And eliminating that wasted effort led to huge gains in efficiency and quality.
And we see that same frictionless philosophy everywhere in modern digital services.
Oh yeah, dating apps, meal delivery, Uber.
Their success isn't magic. It's an engineered reduction of friction. They deliver the same result, a date, a meal, a ride, but in a way that is just exponentially easier than the old way of doing things.
Even governments have figured this out.
Yep. The British government wanted to get more people to pay their taxes on time. Originally, they sent people a link to a web page where you could download the tax form.
So that's 2 steps. Click the link, then quick download.
Then they made one tiny change. They started linking directly to the form itself. Eliminating that one single step increased the response rate by 4.2%. That represents millions in revenue just by removing one tiny point of friction.
So the core idea is to design an environment where doing the right thing is actually the easiest path.
Which brings us to priming the environment for success.
You have to set up your space to make the next action easy.
Because your environment is this invisible hand that shapes your behavior. If your kitchen counter is covered with cookies, the easy thing to do is eat a cookie. If it's empty, except for a big bowl of fruit, the easy thing is to grab an apple.
This is the famous apple bowl example.
Right. Clear used to buy apples and stick them in the crisper drawer at the bottom of his fridge. And he'd forget about them until they went bad.
Because they were out of sight, and it took a little effort opening the door, pulling out the drawer to get to them.
2 little steps of friction. So he just put a big bowl of apples right in the middle of his kitchen counter, made them obvious and easy, and he started eating a few every single day. The easy, visible option won every time.
I love that idea of being proactively lazy.
Yes, from Oswald Knuckles, the IT developer. He understood that to make tomorrow easy, you have to do a little extra work today.
So when he finishes watching TV, he puts the remote away and folds the blanket. He's resetting the room.
Right. Or when he takes a shower, he wipes down the toilet while the water is warming up. These tiny acts just make the next task, whatever it is, completely frictionless.
Okay, so on the flip side, what about making our bad habits more difficult? This is the inversion of the law, right? Using high friction to your advantage.
This is where you use something called a commitment device. It's a choice you make right now that locks in your future actions by making a bad habit incredibly difficult or even impossible.
Victor Hugo did this to force himself to write The Hunchback of Notre Dame. It's one of my favorite stories of just radical self-control.
He was facing this impossible deadline in 1830, but he was just procrastinating like crazy. So he came up with this brilliant solution.
He gathered up all his clothes.
All of his clothes, except for a big shawl, gave them to his assistant and told him to lock them in a chest and not give them back until the deadline. With no suitable clothes to go outside and socialize, he had no choice but to stay in his study and write.
He leveraged high friction to beat procrastination. And the book was published 2 weeks early.
And this same principle was actually commercialized way back with the first cash register.
Right, this was to solve the problem of employee theft.
Absolutely. A store owner named John Henry Patterson was struggling with theft in the mid-1800s. The old systems were easy to cheat, so he bought one of the first cash registers, which automatically locked the cash and receipts inside after every single transaction. He took the bad habit stealing and used technology to add so much friction that it became almost impossible to do without getting caught.
And that brings us to the final law, the one that really locks in the behavior and guarantees you'll repeat it. Make it satisfying.
And this one is maybe the most crucial of all because it taps directly into how our brains are wired for immediate feedback.
We live in what Claire calls a delayed return environment.
Right. We're always working on things that will pay off weeks, months, or even years from now. Saving for retirement, losing weight, changing careers.
But our brains didn't evolve for that.
Not at all. Our brains evolved in an immediate return environment where the focus was on surviving the next 24 hours, finding the next meal, seeking shelter from a storm. Our brains are hardwired to crave quick payoffs over long-term ones.
That concept, the delayed return environment, is so important because it explains why we're all so bad at long-term planning. We're still running on software that cares more about this afternoon than it does about the next decade.
So Law 4 is all about how we can trick that immediate return brain. If a behavior feels unpleasant now, even if we know it's good for us later, we're just not going to stick with it.
We have to find a way to add some kind of immediate positive feedback.
The perfect public health example of this comes from Karachi, Pakistan.
This was the health worker, Stephen Luby, who was trying to reduce illness caused by poor sanitation. And the issue wasn't a lack of knowledge, was it? People knew they should wash their hands.
They knew it was important, but they just weren't doing it consistently because there's no immediate reward. The payoff for your kid not getting sick is weeks away and invisible.
So what did Luby's team do?
They introduced a special soap called Safeguard. And this soap was designed to provide immediate positive sensory feedback. It foamed up really easily, it lathered well, and most importantly, it smelled great.
So that simple sensory pleasure became the immediate reward.
Exactly. That good smell and the nice lather signaled to the primitive part of the brain, hey, this feels good, let's do this again. They literally talked about creating a positive hand-washing experience. And that tiny sensory reward made the habit stick. And it led to this massive, sustained improvement in children's health.
And you see this principle all over the place in consumer products.
Oh yeah, toothpaste is a classic example. Manufacturers found huge success when they started adding flavors like mint and cinnamon. Those flavors do absolutely nothing to improve the cleaning effectiveness of the toothpaste.
They just create that satisfying, clean mouth feeling.
Right. They create an immediate, pleasurable sensation that reinforces the habit loop. That artificial satisfaction guarantees the behavior gets repeated.
So if the real long-term reward is hard to see, we need to create an artificial immediate one, or at the very least have some clear evidence of our progress. And that's where visual measurement comes in.
The paperclip strategy from Trent Dorsman is a great business example. He was a young stockbroker, and every morning he'd start with 2 jars on his desk. One was full of 120 paper clips, the other was empty.
And after every single sales call he made,
He would move 1 paper clip from the full jar to the empty jar. Within 18 months, he was bringing in over $5 million to his firm.
because that simple physical act of moving the paperclip was this immediate, tangible evidence of progress. It reinforced the behavior right away. He wasn't tracking revenue, he was tracking effort.
It's the same psychology behind the don't break the chain method that comedians like Jerry Seinfeld use for writing jokes every day. You're not focused on whether the joke is good or bad, you're just focused on showing up and adding another X to the visual streak on your calendar.
Habit tracking works because it leverages all 4 laws at once.
It makes the behavior obvious, it makes it attractive because you want to see the streak grow, it's easy to just make a mark, and it's incredibly satisfying to see that visual proof of your progress.
But Clear does offer a really important warning here, a concept called Goodhart's Law.
Goodhart's Law basically states that when a measure becomes a target, it ceases to be a good measure. This is the dark side of tracking. If we're not careful, we start optimizing for the metric itself, and we lose sight of the bigger goal.
So if my goal is overall health, but I get obsessed with tracking my daily steps, I might focus so much on hitting 10,000 steps that I completely ignore strength training or eating well because those things don't move the number on my tracker.
Exactly. Or teachers start teaching to the test instead of fostering real curiosity and critical thinking. Because the test score is the only thing being measured, the metric becomes the master.
So tracking should be a guide, not a goal in itself. It has to serve the bigger system of who you want to become.
It provides context, but it can't become the whole picture.
So as we kind of pull all this together, make it obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying, the central conclusion of Atomic Habits just seems inescapable. To get continuous, meaningful growth, you have to focus on the system, on the 1% changes, on the person you want to become. You can't just rely on these random bursts of heroic willpower.
Right. Clear shows us that you are capable of doing hard things. But on the days when you're tired or unmotivated, you need to have as many things working in your favor as possible.
The system is the structural advantage.
It's the structural advantage that makes your stronger self show up more often and more easily.
Now, to wrap up this deep dive, there's one final provocative idea that Clear brings up in the advanced section that I want to leave our listeners with. And that's the idea of choosing the right game to play in the first place. The explore-exploit trade-off.
This is so crucial for long-term success and just, happiness. Clear recognizes that sometimes failure isn't a problem with your habits, it's a problem with the arena you're competing in.
So in the beginning of anything, you should be in the explore phase.
Right. Try a lot of different things, cast a really wide net, test out different niches.
And the whole point of that exploration is to find the right place to dig in.
Exactly. Once you have enough data, you shift to the exploit phase. You focus all your energy on the one area where you seem to get better returns than the average person. The essential question you have to ask is, where do my natural skills and my passions make the path of least effort incredibly fruitful for me?
So how do you find that sweet spot, that area where your 1% improvements are going to compound faster than they would for someone else?
You have to ask yourself a few key questions like, what feels like fun to me but looks like work to other people? Where do I just completely lose track of time? The work that hurts you less than it hurts other people is the work you were built to do. If you can choose a game where the odds are already stacked in your favor, that compounding effect just accelerates like crazy.
And if you can't find a game where the odds are in your favor, the ultimate move is to just create a new one by combining your skills.
That's the Scott Adams strategy, the creator of Dilbwin. He knew he could draw better than most people, but he wasn't, a world-class artist.
And he was funnier than most people, but not a top-tier stand-up comedian.
Right. The magic happened when he combined those two pretty good skills with his background in the corporate world. He created a brand new game corporate satire comics, a niche where he had almost no competition.
When you combine your skills, you can create your own favorable environment.
That's it. It's such a powerful way to end the discussion. The real secret isn't just raw talent. It's selecting and designing a system that maximizes your unique stack of skills. You can't control if you're a potato or an egg, but you can decide whether you play a game where it's better to be hard or soft.
What a fantastic insight. Thank you for guiding us through the atomic structure of success today. We really hope this exploration into James Clear's work gives you the tools you need to build better systems in your own life. And we encourage you to tune in for our next exploration into inspiring literature.
And remember, if you enjoyed this discussion and want to keep getting shortcuts to being well-informed, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment. It really supports the show and ensures you catch all our future deep dives. We'll see you next time on Awesome Chapter.